Hello everyone, it's Christine here and we are back for our stitch along and we're going to be working on buttonhole stitch this session. So I've done a practice run myself around here because it's true to say I haven't actually done many buttonholes as part of fabric construction or other things. So it can be used in this way to create an actual buttonhole. It can also be used on cut edge work to reinforce a cut edge of fabric. So this one I did using just a regular Perle from DMC, and I'm going to try it now with a thicker thread just to see how it goes. So what I've done is put a little slit in the fabric very carefully, and then I've drawn a line with friction marker above and below. What we're going to do is start with our thread on the front, and we're not going to knot it. So we're just going to have the cut end of the thread. And then we're going to bring our needle through from within where the cut is in the fabric and bring it out where the line is. And we're going to pull it through, leaving that sort of few centimetre tail behind. We're then going to take the needle through the opening again and re-emerge next to the stitch that we just did. We're then going to take our thread behind the eye of the needle and below the tip of the needle. And then we're going to pull the thread down towards us. And then at that point, we're going to pull it up so that it forms a little knot where the cut edge of the fabric is. So that's the first of our little buttonhole stitches in place. And then we're going to repeat that procedure as we work our way along. I'll just have to find a good place where I can do this with the camera and with the, keeping it in as best view. So we're taking the thread behind the eye of the needle and then under the tip of the needle, pulling the thread through, and then once it gets to that point, we're pulling it up to form a knot along the cut edge. So again, coming in from where the slit is, bringing our needle down to where we drew our line next to the previous stitch. And then with this working thread, we're taking it behind the needle from left to right or clockwise, and then under the tip of the needle, so continuing clockwise around. We're then pulling our thread through while we hold that other thread with our finger, pulling it down to this point, and then we're pulling it up to make a nice little knot on the edge of the fabric. And if your fabric is coming apart with little threads like that, you just want to sort of work out which ones you're keeping above and which you're keeping capturing in your stitch. That would probably be the main tip. But I think a more tightly woven might be less likely to do it, or less sort of coarse fabric. Not quite sure how to even describe it. So again, pulling the thread through. See, I think I've almost caught some little bit of threadiness in here, possibly where I had chopped a thread by accident. So each time the same thing, coming through from where the slit is. Bring the thread around behind the eye of the needle and then under the tip of the needle, holding the thread and pulling through, pulling down and then pulling up to get that knot on the cut edge. I might just orientate myself around a smidge. And if you've already got the thread behind the needle, it makes that step a bit easier, and then you're just needing to loop it up and under. Oops, and try not to skewer your fabric below. And then you're just pulling through, and then when you get to that point, making your knot. And you're trying to keep them relatively close together. And again, having the line drawn just helps, because as you start to do the stitches, it's a bit harder to tell where your thread needs to come down to. Then I'll do another 1 or 2, I think, just to finish off the row there. Trying to get it to pop out at exactly the right spot. It's a little bit hard doing in the hoop, but the hoop holds it a bit more taut, so it makes it easier for you to hopefully see what I'm doing. So taking the thread behind the needle clockwise, and then under the tip of the needle, oops, and then pulling the thread through while you hold on to it, pulling down most of the way, and then at the end pulling up to get that little knot. So I think that's probably enough done there. So then we're going to do take the needle through the opening and re-emerge next to the previous stitch. So this will be the little bar tack, as the book calls it. So we're coming through there, and then we're actually going to bring the needle out without doing the knot, and then we're going to go and do 3 stitches at the end, top to bottom. So just keep the thread over there. So we're just going to do a stitch next to the one that we just did, trying to get my needle to go as close as possible to there. I just have to reorientate a bit. So we're doing a stitch up and down, basically, what they call a bar tack. And then we're going to do another 2 of those. So 3 in total of these bar tacks, which are basically just up and down stitches at the very end of the row of buttonhole. Ouch, almost poked my needle behind the fabric. What have I done? Managed to catch myself and form a knot. That's pretty impressive, really, Christine. We'll get there. There we go. We've knotted ourselves through. Okay, and then we'll just take our needle back in at the top and try not to form another knot because we've got our tail poking through. Then we're going to turn ourselves upside down, and we're going to pop through here at this end. Oops, and there's a thread coming through from the side. Let's just get rid of that. Got threads everywhere. I told you this was a thready piece of fabric, but that's okay. In fact, I need to make sure I'm catching this little thread that's in the middle, so I'll make sure I'm above that when I start this process. So we've come through the slit after turning it upside down, and then we're going to bring the thread to the front as we've done through the opening, and then we're going to take it back through the opening. So you've come to the front, and now you're going to go back through the opening as we do when we form these stitches and pop out at that lower line. So it's really just doing as we did on the other side, and then we're going to continue that process of making sure we wrap clockwise around the eye and then under the tip of the needle, and then let's again fix the tail. Should have done that before, and then we make our little knotted stitch, and I'm just going to make sure my thread's not got too long of a tail. There we go. Okay, and then we just keep coming through from where the opening is down to our line. Oops, very clumsy tonight on the stitching, I am. And then bringing our thread around clockwise, holding on to it, although it doesn't matter too much, it just helps to avoid getting knots. And I'll just find a comfortable position to do this in. So again, taking our thread around and around, and pulling through, pulling down, and then at the end pulling up to create that little pearl or knot on the cut side of the fabric. So Again, taking our thread loop-de-loop around, not that way, underneath the tip. Sorry, bang the camera again, too close. Taking it up. Taking our thread around. Pulling our thread down and then knotting it up. The only hard thing is sometimes because you've got the multiple bits of thread that you can see just working out which is your working thread. So they all blend in together. Thread under and around under the tip. Might not have pulled that previous one quite tight enough. I think it's okay though. Oops, where's my working thread? That one there. And that's already behind the eye, so we just need to loop it under. Probably the trick if you can already make sure that thread is behind the eye of your needle. It just means one less wrapping step that you need to do. So wrapping it round, pulling it through, and I think this will be our last stitch here. And then we're going to do the same process for making the bar tack. So we're going to go down into the slit and then pop out next to our last stitch, but rather than doing the notch, we're going to just pull the thread through, and then we're going to do 3 stitches at the end from top to bottom, although we are upside down at the moment, but essentially following that same process. Just trying to pop out as close as possible, because with this whole stitch you just want to be as close to your previous stitches, just so you get that nice continuous look. So that's 2 and then 1 more. Okay, and then we're going to take our needle back into the fabric at the back. Oh, sorry, bumped the camera again. And we are now going to take our needle through the row of stitches, but not through the fabric. So you're just running it under the row of stitches. And then we can finish off. So that is our buttonhole stitch, which works very well, I think. Got a tiny little gap there, but despite the challenges of the fabric, I think we'll take that as a success. Now, the lovely Kimberly had given me a few other different variations of buttonhole, which I haven't looked up yet. I'll see if any of them look like they would be good for us to do in terms of being decorative sort of buttonholes. So we might do another buttonhole, or otherwise we'll be moving on to another letter. Is there another letter B? No, we'll be moving on to C if there is not a buttonhole or another relevant B stitch to do. So stay tuned for tomorrow, bit of suspense. You'll get to see the premiere when I list it, and you'll get to see what the topic of it's going to be. But I hope you enjoyed doing a bit of buttonhole stitch. Thanks for watching, folks, and hope you're having a great day or a great evening. Bye.